Hey everybody, I'm in the truck again today, so if you see the camera rumble a little bit, that's what's going on. Yeah, I'm going to be using my phone to kind of help me out with some notes. I am obviously learning as I go, so I want to make sure I'm giving you accurate information, so notes help me out a lot. But today, we're going to be talking about the kind of two basics of the types of polemics that I'm learning about right now. And one's called internal and one's called external. And internal is kind of self-explanatory. It's a critique of contradictions or issues inside the worldview. And external is kind of the same thing, but the outside is a critique of contradictions when comparing the worldview to history, archaeology, stuff outside the belief. So the best way to get started learning this is to kind of learn from people who are already doing it. Different people are good at different things. For instance, David Wood does a great job with internal critiques, talking about the Islamic satanic verses and the Islamic dilemma and some of the problems in Islam where we see Muhammad contradict himself through the hadiths and the Qur'an. Other people you can look at too is David's partner, Apostate Prophet. If you're looking for somebody other than Islam, great resources would be James White, William Lane Craig, and Cliff Koukl and Stuart Koukl. I think I'm saying their last name right. Obviously, James White and William Lane Craig are going to be heavy on the philosophical, but if something doesn't make philosophical sense external from itself, it's just not going to make any sense. So there's always a great resource with those two. They're amazing. I can't say enough good things about both of them. I'm not from the Reformed tradition. I know some people feel a certain way about James White. I think he's great in terms of the apologetic side of the equation. And in terms of ministering to Mormons, his stuff and everything Apologia Studios is doing is really rock solid, and they do a great job of showing internal critiques to the Mormon religion. Cliff Koukl and Stuart Koukl, really good for seeing kind of great dialogue, live and actions examples of back and forth. Always really fun to watch them. One thing you should do, and this is challenging for myself as well, is go watch like Rationality Rules and Cosmic Skeptic, Alex O'Connor, and see what they're coming up with as polemics against Christianity. Really, the atheist groups have been doing polemics for a long time, and part of the reason why apologetics got so popular is if you look at the new atheist, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and I don't remember the other guy's name. They came out and really hit Christianity hard in terms of the minds of young people with questions that demanded an answer, and where a lot of people fell in terms of apologetics knowledge is really low. And what was going on is, and maybe you saw this in your own church, you would have, say, like a 19-year-old kid going and talking to maybe an associate pastor or something like that, and the associate pastor never had to deal with answering these questions, never thought to answer these questions. And I don't want to pick on your associate pastor for being lazy or anything like that, not where I'm trying to go, but we weren't prepared as the Christian community to kind of handle these questions the way that they needed to be handled. So this is definitely something you're going to want to practice. Hop on to ChatGPT, start asking it for examples of polemics, start kind of practicing using the different skills and resources that you have afforded to you to start coming up with, okay, well, you know, I maybe know this, or I'm going to try this. But one of the big things is if you're going to do an internal critique, you got to go read the Book of Mormon, or you got to go read the Qur'an or the hadiths, and it's going to require a lot of, effort. I've done some of that. Like, I've studied the Book of Mormon, I've studied some Doctrine and Covenants. I've never done the Pearl of Great Price. The Book of Abraham I'm probably never going to do, and I don't really care. I've gone through the Quran, I've gone through Sahih Muslim, Sahih al-Bukhari, not completely because they're huge, and Sunnah Dawood. And then I've done a couple other things like some Jehovah's Witness literature and stuff like that. But keep in mind, that can be a really big ask to do an internal critique without a lot of studying. So just be prepared that you may need to stop and specialize and spend a lot of your time, kind of chugging through their spiritual stuff. For instance, if you wanted to understand Mormonism, reading the Book of Mormon is just the beginning. Slogging through the Doctrine and Covenants is where the real meat and potatoes is going to be. So for me, unbeknownst to this polemical journey way long time ago, I started doing William Lane Craig's Defender series, which is an apologetic series, but it shows you a lot of worldview issues with atheism, agnosticism, and some of the other more philosophical worldview approaches to the religion question. And it was really good for me because it showed me how to attack some of the different theories for how life came about, or time, or the universe, or whatever else. And you can see a lot of those in On Guard, and if you go on and do Reasonable Faith, same thing there too. But the Defender series is like, Defenders 3 is like 60, 70 plus hours, like 77, 76 hours. So it is a big undertaking, but that can be a lot easier for you to learn how to do external critiques because they're applicable or the knowledge that you would learn doing something like Defenders is applicable in multiple different ways. It could be an apologetic, it could be in a polemic, it could even be a discipling thing or an evangelistic thing. So for me, I started off doing that because I just thought it was apologetics. And that's probably where you're going to start off as well, if you haven't already. So take heart, it's going to be an uphill battle. And I'm mentally getting myself prepared for that if I want to do a lot of internal critiques. But, the good news is you've probably already been learning how to do external critiques. You just didn't really know how to apply it. Learning when to apply them and kind of what they're used for and when to take a step back, I've learned is very important. I've also learned that it's best to kind of lean into this with using questions. So think Greg Koukl's tactics, think Eric Hernandez, think the Socratic method, which we talked about here recently. How do we get this person to kind of walk with us? Asking things like, okay, so I read this in the Book of Mormon, the Qur'an, philosophy over here, whatever. But then I also read this later on, and I don't understand how these two work together. And let the person try and explain it to you. And if somebody comes back to you and says, well, I don't know, that's just what I've been told. Oh, okay, well, who do we need to ask, or where do we need to read about this, or how do we research this? So you're not creating an interlocutor situation where it's you versus them. You're both asking a reasonable question. There are more types of polemics than just internal and external, but this is what I've chosen to learn first. I was recently watching God Logic, and he was making a big deal trying to stress the difference between the two whenever you're communicating. I was live in debate with a female Muslim lady, and she was trying to do certain polemics against Christianity and not doing a great job of it, and he was correcting her, trying to say, no, that's not external, that's internal. No, that's not internal, that's external. So that really kind of got the ball rolling for me mentally that it's important to kind of figure out which one's which and when I'm applying and everything else. But do me a favor, go into the comments and kind of express your feelings on this and where you think your strengths are going to fall. Are you going to be more of an external person, just kind of spread your mind out across the basics and try and master whatever you can double dip on, like for instance William Lane Craig's On Guard? Or do you feel a calling to a particular religious group or philosophical group, whatever it may be, and you found yourself doing like Walter Martin's Kingdom of the Cults, and you said, I'm going to focus on Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm going to suck up all their literature, I'm going to learn their history and where things are screwy? Comment your journey down below and let's start a dialogue and grow together. Anyways, y'all have a great day.